Okay, what I'm trying to get you guys to think about today is the issue of what are the questions that you had to ask when you were making the decision to travel. In other words, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about environmental questions? In other words, what are we doing to deal with the environment? What are we dealing to deal with? What are we doing to deal with the various environments in which we pass through? Think about the interpersonal things. In other words, how do we interact with these people who we're dealing with? One of the things that are important that I think we didn't think about today in class, you may not have thought about, is what happens when you meet someone for the first time who doesn't speak an ounce of the same language that you speak. How do you interact? How do you come to a understanding with those people? And so when you're looking at the Bantu, as we saw with the reading that you guys did, I want you to think about all the things that they had to deal with when they talked about in that primary source that you read, which was the second part of your reading for today, was that they talked about how the Bantu dealt with the situation, how the language may have passed from place to place, and that's a big part of this. In that, when we think about the way language develops, a lot of it is based upon environmental and physical factors. For example, you can see physical barriers acting as linguistic barriers. For example, the ancient Greeks, at the north end of Greece, you've got mountains, and when you get there, on the other side, the northern side of those mountains, you see a different language being spoken. Why is that? Well, it's because the people who were living north of that never interacted with the people who were living south of it due to the physical environment. And so when you were looking at this, what I want you to post about underneath this video is what you think the big questions you have to ask, or you had to ask yourselves when you guys were putting together your letter. So when you were doing this, I think it's important to think about what were the big questions you guys asked yourselves. The other thing I'd like you guys to do is, those of you who wrote this in a Word document, I'd like you to do me a favor and email that document to me at some point over the next day or so. I forgot to mention that during class, but email that document to me. And what we'll do is, I want you to talk about all the factors in the comments below. I want you to talk about all the factors that you think come up when thinking about some of these early civilizations and how they managed to interact with one another, both environmentally and person to person. And so if you have questions about that, post your questions down in the comment section. If you can write on it, and then I'd like to see you do a little bit of back and forth on that. So go ahead and do that when you get a chance.